diaspora ministers actually of many countries on which policies they can choose in order to take advantages most from their diaspora in abroad. What would you recommend, for example, if at one point would be a minister of diaspora in Iran?
I think that this is actually a very politically fraught question, because the thing is that when we discuss diaspora engagement, it's always specific to the given state and the diaspora relationship that they have. The problem I see in Iran is that you have, of course, an extremely diverse group of migrants, and some may be willing to be engaged and some not. And so much of it has to do with the trust that the government can build with the diaspora, but also laterally within itself. I think that when we often start off with discussing diaspora engagement policies, we start with symbolic nation building, with the sorts of things that a government can do to encourage a group of people to feel as if they are going home, that there is still a tie, and that there is still some purpose that the government can serve. It has to be a bilaterally useful relationship, otherwise it shouldn't be pursued. And I think that with the first steps in a diaspora engagement policy, you can easily look towards things like offering types of identity cards, for instance, that actually do entail some greater rights when somebody does return. Some states, for instance, have even eliminated taxes for when somebody does return, that they don't have to pay airport taxes. Other states have devised things where they eventually allow dual citizenship, or they allow somebody to vote from abroad. These are all very substantive rights that a state can actually grant to a population abroad that will encourage them to still feel like they are part of that population. But of course, that anticipates that the state can afford that they can afford to have that kind of relationship with their diaspora. And I think in the case of Iran, I would be very hesitant to make any recommendations simply because it's not a context I know well. I've worked mostly with African states. And I find that Iran is in a completely other situation. I also think that the type of population it might want to choose to engage are not necessarily those who need to be engaged. They aren't necessarily those who can earn something or achieve something by being related to the state again. And so I think that a good starting point is to understand who your diaspora is and what their vested interests are. Is it that they want to come back? Do they want to do so permanently or temporarily? And then when they do come back, do they want to, for instance, build businesses? Or do they want to have careers? And I think that one of the things that Iran can consider is why people have been leaving in the first place, and what they can do to actually encourage people to stay, particularly those who are in highly skilled fields. Because if I'm not mistaken, the greatest number of tertiary educated who leave Iran are from very technical fields, generally from engineering, chemical, natural sciences. And I can imagine that one of the problems might be that there aren't enough job positions in the country. You have a very highly educated population and no function for them on the labor market. If this is not the case, then what is it that drives them? Is it that they have access to better knowledge networks abroad? Is it that they can learn from other individuals? Is it that they can actually expand their own knowledge, or that they can build their own companies? What is it that drives them to leave? I think that has to be the start of a diaspora engagement policy. And then the second step is to think, what are the hard mechanisms I can actually offer? So for instance, if I don't want to do something like offer dual citizenship, which is of course a really big right, is there something smaller? Is there a piece that will in some way wave the white flag and signal we are still interested in engaging with you, but on certain terms? And I think also that a state can consider with diaspora engagement other types of initiatives that are not necessarily just from state to diaspora, but also between states. I think that